I once stood on a rooftop believing I'd hit rock bottom. I never expected the beginning to come when someone called me back. Voice trembling, painfully real. The meaning of this story is simple. Sometimes being invited to come back is what saves a life. Hey, my name's Ethan Brooks. I'm 28 and I live in Riverton, a small town in Oregon where nothing much happens. I work as a low-level office clerk in the town's resource department, handling paperwork and filing reports that no one really reads. My days are routine. Clock in at 8, stare at spreadsheets, clock out around 6 or later if there's overtime. I rent a cheap apartment on the edge of town, drive an old Ford pickup that's seen better days, and spend my evenings watching TV or grabbing a beer at the local dive. No girlfriend, no drama, just me, trying to make ends meet without rocking the boat too much. That night started like any other late shift. I'd stayed behind to finish some filing on budget allocations, the kind of mindless task that keeps the lights on but doesn't exactly set your soul on fire. It was around 9 p.m. when I finally stepped out of the town hall building, umbrella in hand, ready to catch the last bus back to my place. Riverton in the daytime is peaceful, tree-lined streets, friendly waves from neighbors. But at night, especially in a storm, it feels isolated, like the world's forgotten about it. The rain was coming down hard, sheets of it sliding through the air, turning the parking lot into a shallow lake. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the wind whipped at my coat. I was halfway to the bus stop when a flash of lightning lit up the sky, bright as day for a split second. That's when I saw it. Or her. On the rooftop of the old town hall annex next door, a figure stood right at the edge of the rusted iron railing. The building was mostly abandoned now, used for storage, but the roof access was supposed to be locked. The silhouette was unmistakable. Someone teetering on the brink, hair whipping in the wind, arms loose at their sides. My heart slammed into my ribs. Was this real? In Riverton? People here dealt with their problems quietly. Divorces, job losses, the usual small-town blues. But not like this. I froze for a beat, rain soaking my shoes, but then instinct kicked in. "Hey!" I shouted uselessly into the storm, my voice swallowed by the downpour. No response. Another lightning strike confirmed it. The figure was leaning forward like they were about to let go. Panic surged through me. I dropped my umbrella, letting it tumble away in the wind, and bolted toward the annex building. The side door was ajar. Someone had forced it open. I shoved through, my shoes squeaking on the wet linoleum, and raced up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. My lungs burned, but all I could think was, get there. Stop this. The stairs seemed endless, 4 flights, each one echoing with my footsteps and the roar of the storm outside. My mind raced. Who could it be? A stranger? Someone I knew? Riverton wasn't big. Faces were familiar. By the time I reached the roof access door, my shirt was plastered to my skin from sweat and rain. The door was unlocked, the chain snapped. I burst through it, wind slamming into me like a wall. There she was. Sophia Reed, my boss, the 42-year-old head of the administrative department, the woman everyone in the office saw as unflappable. Always in crisp suits, barking orders with precision, the one who never missed a deadline or showed a crack in her armor. But now, she was drenched, her usually neat hair matted to her face, mascara running in black streaks down her pale cheeks. She stood at the very edge, toes curling over the lip of the roof, hands gripping the railing so tight her knuckles were white. The drop below was at least 5 stories, straight to the concrete lot where town events were held on sunny days. I stopped dead, breath heaving. "Sophia?" My voice cracked. She didn't move at first, just stared out into the void, the rain pounding around us like gunfire. Then she turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting mine, empty, exhausted, like she'd been carrying the weight of the world for too long, and was finally ready to drop it. "Ethan?" she whispered, barely audible over the storm. "What are you doing here?" I took a cautious step forward, hands up like I was approaching a scared animal. Water streamed down my face, blurring my vision. "Please, step back. Don't do this." She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You shouldn't be here. This isn't your problem. Go home." My stomach twisted. If I leave now and tomorrow they find I couldn't live with that. "Please, Sophia, whatever it is, it's not worth this." She gripped the railing tighter, her body swaying slightly in the wind. Lightning cracked again, illuminating her face. Raw, vulnerable, nothing like the boss who intimidated half the office. "You don't understand," she said, voice breaking. "I've held it together for so long. The perfect career, the perfect facade. But inside, it's all hollow. I can't keep pretending anymore." I edged closer, heart pounding. The roof was slick, puddles forming under my feet. One wrong move, and we'd both go over. "Then don't pretend. Talk to me. Scream at me. Anything. Just step back." Her eyes filled with tears mixing with the rain. "Why do you care? I'm just your boss. The one who piles work on you and never says thanks." "Because you're more than that," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. "You're human. And humans break sometimes. But they don't have to break alone." She hesitated, her grip loosening. For a terrifying second, I thought she'd let go. Then her knees buckled and she crumpled backward, away from the edge. I lunged forward, catching her shoulders, pulling her into me as we both hit the wet roof. She sobbed against my chest, her body shaking, while the rain hammered down around us. I held her tight, whispering, "It's okay. You're okay. I've got you." In that moment, titles vanished. She wasn't my superior, I wasn't her subordinate. We were just two people in a storm, one pulling the other back from the brink. The thunder rolled on, but for the first time that night, it felt like the world might hold together a little longer. The rain finally eased up, turning from a relentless downpour to a steady drizzle that pattered against the rooftop like distant applause. We were both soaked through, sitting with our backs against the cold brick wall of the access hut, the city's faint lights blurring in the mist below. Sophia's sobs had quieted, but her body still trembled under my arm. Whether from the chill or the aftermath, I couldn't tell. I shrugged off my jacket, draping it over her shoulders without a word. It was too big on her, but she pulled it tight, nodding a silent thanks. For a few long minutes, neither of us spoke. The wind howled through the gaps in the railing, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and distant pine trees, Riverton's signature after a storm. Water dripped from the overhang above us, pooling in shallow puddles that reflected the cloudy sky. I stared at my hands, scraped from the rough concrete when we'd fallen, and wondered what the hell I was supposed to do next. Call someone? Take her home? Pretend this never happened? "You know," I said finally, my voice low and rough from shouting earlier, "I've never seen you like this. Vulnerable, I mean. Not that it's a bad thing, just human." She turned her head toward me, her face still pale and streaked with rain-smeared makeup. Her eyes, usually sharp and commanding in meetings, were rimmed red, filled with something raw and unguarded. Shame, maybe, or defeat. "You think I'm pathetic, don't you?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm your boss. I'm supposed to be the one in control, setting examples. And here I am on a rooftop like some coward running from her own life." I shook my head, shifting a little closer to block the wind from hitting her directly. "No, not pathetic. Just tired. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who hold it together the longest before they crack. And when they do, it's not weakness. It's proof they've been carrying too much for too damn long." She let out a shaky breath, her fingers fiddling with the zipper of my jacket. She unclipped her earrings, simple silver hoops that looked out of place now, and held them in her palm, staring at them like they held some secret. Then, almost in a murmur, she started talking. "I wasn't always like this, Ethan. Back in my 30s, I had it all figured out. Or so I thought. I was engaged to this guy, Mark. We built a startup together in Portland, a tech firm specializing in logistics software. It was our baby. We planned the wedding around board meetings, talked about kids someday. I landed this huge contract that could have set us up for life." I listened, not interrupting, as the rain softened further. Her voice gained a little strength, but it was laced with bitterness. "But the night before we signed the papers, he forged my signature on a sale agreement, sold our shares to a competitor under the table, pocketed the money, and vanished. Left me with nothing but lawsuits and empty bank accounts. I fought it in court for 2 years, but by then, the damage was done. I lost everything. The company, my savings, my trust in people. I moved to Riverton to start over, took this job because it was stable, predictable. Everyone here thinks I'm the Iron Lady who never falters. But the truth? Every night I go home to an empty apartment, staring at the walls, wondering why I even bother getting up in the morning. Tonight, It just felt like enough. Like I was hollow inside and jumping would finally make the outside match. Her words hit me like a punch. I'd always seen her as untouchable. The boss who critiqued my reports with a red pen and never cracked a smile unless it was professional. But hearing this, seeing her unravel, it stripped away the layers. She wasn't just my superior, she was someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself in silence, only to fracture again. "I'm sorry," I said, my throat tight. "That sounds like hell. No one deserves that kind of betrayal." She wiped at her eyes with the sleeve of my jacket. "What about you, Ethan? Why did you come up here? You could have walked away, pretended you saw nothing. Most people would." I hesitated, staring out at the town lights flickering through the haze. The truth bubbled up, unbidden. Maybe because she'd shared her darkness, or maybe because the storm had washed away my own filters. "Because I've been there," I admitted quietly. "Not on a rooftop, but close. A couple years back, I lost my first real job, laid off during cutbacks. It wasn't just the paycheck, it was everything. I felt worthless, like I'd failed before I'd even started. One night, I sat in my truck with a bottle of pills, staring at the river, thinking it'd be easier to just not wake up, but something stopped me, a call from an old friend, checking in out of the blue. It wasn't dramatic, but it pulled me back. So when I saw you up here tonight, I couldn't walk away. Not when I know what that edge feels like." She looked at me then, really looked, not as her employee, but as someone who'd stared into the same abyss. "I didn't know," she said softly. "You always seem so steady at work." "Yeah, well, we all wear masks, right?" I replied with a weak smile. "Yours is just thicker than most." The air between us shifted in that moment, not to something romantic, not yet, but to a quiet understanding. We sat there longer, the rain fading to a mist, sharing fragments of our broken pieces without judgment. Her hand brushed mine accidentally as she adjusted the jacket, and neither of us pulled away. It wasn't about fixing each other, it was about not being alone in the wreckage. For the first time that night, the cold didn't bite as hard. As the storm cleared, leaving stars peeking through the clouds, I helped her stand. "Come on," I said. "Let's get you home. Tomorrow's another day." She nodded, leaning on me just a little as we headed for the door. In the silence of our descent, a fragile bond formed. Not from pity, but from shared scars that no one else in Riverton would ever see. The morning after felt like stepping into a different world. Riverton hadn't changed. The streets were still slick from the storm, puddles reflecting the overcast sky, and the air carried that fresh, earthy scent of rain-soaked soil. But everything inside the town hall office building was off-kilter, like the storm had left behind more than just wet sidewalks. I got to work early, around 7:45, nursing a hangover from the adrenaline crash and lack of sleep. My clothes from last night were still damp in my bag. I'd changed into a spare shirt and jeans I kept in my locker. Coffee in hand, I settled at my desk, staring at the computer screen without really seeing it. Sophia arrived at 8:05, right on time as always. She walked in wearing her usual gray suit, hair pulled back neatly, makeup subtle but precise. From a distance, she looked like the same unflappable boss, clipboard in hand, heels clicking on the linoleum floor. But I noticed the details no one else would. The faint shadows under her eyes, the way her shoulders tensed just a fraction more than usual. As she passed through the bullpen, heads turned. Not blatantly, but enough to create that heavy silence, the kind where whispers wait just out of earshot. By 9 a.m., the rumors had started. I overheard snippets in the break room while refilling my mug. "Did you hear? She was on the roof last night during the storm." "Yeah, and someone said Ethan was up there with her. What was that about?" "Probably a meltdown. I mean, she's always so intense, bound to crack eventually." I kept my head down, stirring my coffee longer than necessary, but my ears burned. How did they know? Security cameras? A night janitor? Riverton was small. Word traveled fast, especially when it involved the Iron Lady of the admin department showing a chink in her armor. The atmosphere thickened as the morning dragged on. People avoided her office, stacking files on the assistant's desk instead of knocking. When Sophia called a quick stand-up meeting at 10 to go over the weekly budget reports, the room filled with that awkward energy, eyes darting, feet shifting. She stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, outlining tasks like nothing had happened. "We'll need those projections by end of day," she said, her voice steady. But no one met her gaze directly. Instead, they flicked looks at each other, then at me. I felt the weight of it, sitting in the back, pretending to take notes. Lunch break was worse. I grabbed a sandwich from the vending machine and ate at my desk, scrolling through emails to avoid conversation. That's when the message popped up. An internal chat from Lisa, the receptionist who'd been with the department for years. "Hey, Ethan, everything okay? Heard you were playing hero last night. Sophia getting a little too close to the staff?" Attached was a grainy screenshot from the building's CCTV, two blurred figures on the roof, one holding the other in the rain. My stomach dropped. It wasn't incriminating, but in a small office like this, it was fuel for speculation. I typed back quickly. "Nothing like that, just helped out in a tough spot. Drop it." But I knew it wouldn't stop there. By afternoon, the whispers had evolved. In the copy room, I caught Mark from accounting muttering to another guy. "She's always been high-strung. Emotional instability like that? Not great for a boss. And Ethan? Kid's probably angling for a promotion, staying late, rescuing her. Smart move if you ask me." I clenched my jaw, pretending not to hear as I waited for the printer. Anger bubbled up, not at them exactly, but at the unfairness of it all. Sophia wasn't some fragile liability. She was the one who kept this department running, juggling budgets and deadlines while the rest of us clocked in and out. And now, because she'd had one moment of breaking, they were painting her as unstable? It pissed me off. The breaking point came during the 3 p.m. team huddle. We were discussing the upcoming town audit when Jenna, a junior analyst, piped up with a not-so-subtle dig. "Given recent events, maybe we should review protocols for handling high-stress situations. To ensure everyone's emotional state doesn't affect productivity." The room went dead quiet. Eyes shifted to Sophia, who stood there, pen frozen mid-note, her face a mask of composure. But I saw the flicker, the hurt, the isolation. I couldn't stay silent. "Hold on," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. Everyone turned to me, surprised. "If we're talking about last night, and yeah, I was there, then let's get it straight. If I hadn't shown up, we might not have a department head today." Sophia wasn't unstable, she was human, dealing with crap none of us know about. And if thinking pain is something to mock or protocol away means you've never felt it yourself, well, maybe that's the real issue here. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Jenna flushed, mumbling something about just a suggestion. Sophia didn't react outwardly. She just nodded once, her eyes meeting mine for a brief second. Gratitude? Relief? I couldn't tell. The meeting wrapped up quickly after that, people scattering like they'd been caught gossiping in church. As the day ended, the distance felt palpable. Colleagues avoided Sophia's office, piling memos on her door instead. She stayed late, lights on in her room while the building emptied. I lingered at my desk pretending to finish a report, but really just watching the clock. The rumors hadn't died. If anything, my outburst had fanned them. Whispers now included me. "Ethan's defending her a bit too fiercely. What's going on there?" It stung, but more than that, it isolated her further. Like the office had drawn an invisible line and she was on the wrong side. By 7 p.m. as I packed up, I glanced at her door. The gap between us, boss and employee, felt wider than ever. Yet somehow, after last night, it was bridged in ways no one else could see. I headed out into the cooling evening, the weight of the day pressing down, knowing tomorrow would bring more stares. But for Sophia's sake, I wasn't backing down. It was 10:12 p.m. when I found myself back at the office. The building was a ghost town by then. Lights off in the bullpen, the hum of the AC the only sound echoing through the halls. I'd gone home after work, showered off the day's tension, and tried to unwind with a frozen dinner and some mindless TV. But my mind kept drifting back to Sophia's office light, still burning when I'd left. The rumors, the stares, they'd isolated her more than ever. I couldn't shake it. So, on impulse, I grabbed a bag from the corner store down the block. Cinnamon toast, a couple of chocolate milks, nothing fancy. Comfort food, I figured. If she was still there, maybe it would help. If not, I'd feel like an idiot driving back for nothing. The front door was unlocked, standard for late-nighters finishing reports. I took the stairs quietly, my footsteps muffled on the carpet. The second floor was dark except for a faint glow spilling from the old conference room at the end of the hall. The whiteboard there still had smudged notes from earlier meetings, ghosts of the day's chaos. I paused at the door, peering in. Sophia was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, her suit jacket draped over the chair beside her. Her knees were drawn up, arms wrapped around them, eyes staring blankly at the opposite wall. No laptop, no files, just her, alone in the dim light from the desk lamp. I knocked softly on the doorframe. "Sophia, you still here?" She looked up, startled but not alarmed. Her makeup was gone now, face clean and tired, hair loose around her shoulders. "Ethan? What are you doing back?" I held up the bag. "Couldn't sleep. Figured if you were pulling an all-nighter, you might need fuel. I didn't know what you eat late at night, so I grabbed cinnamon toast and 2 chocolate milks." She let out a small laugh, a real one, soft and unexpected, crinkling the corners of her eyes. It was the first time I'd heard her sound genuinely light since, well, ever. "Chocolate milk? Like kids?" I shrugged, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. "Hey, I'm basically a glorified intern who looks like he just graduated college. Fits the theme." She scooted over slightly, making space on the floor, and I sat down beside her, the carpet rough under my jeans. I pulled out the toast, handing her a piece wrapped in foil still warm from the store's heater. She took it, unwrapping it slowly, and we ate in companionable silence for a minute, the only sounds the crinkle of paper and the faint drip of a leaky faucet somewhere down the hall. "I used to think," she said finally, her voice quiet, "that a strong woman doesn't cry at work, doesn't show cracks. You push through, smile, and keep the machine running." I nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "Yeah, and I used to think a strong man doesn't let anyone see him shake. You bottle it up, act tough, and hope no one notices the tremors." She glanced at me, her eyes searching mine in the low light. "But last night, you saw me at my worst. Shattered. And you didn't run." "Because I've been shattered too," I replied, "and I know running doesn't fix it." We sat there, the room feeling smaller, more intimate without the bustle of the day. The fluorescent hum from the hallway light filtered in, casting long shadows across the floor. Sophia set her toast aside, wiping crumbs from her hands. "You know, Ethan, I haven't told anyone this, but do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like the person everyone sees isn't the real you?" "All the time," I admitted, leaning my head back against the wall. "At work, I'm the reliable guy who nods and files reports. But at home, I'm the one who stares at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering if this is all there is." After that layoff a few years back, I rebuilt myself brick by brick. But some days it feels like the foundation's still shaky. She turned toward me fully now, her knee brushing mine. "I get that. After Mark betrayed me, I poured everything into this job. The perfect boss, the unflappable leader, but it's exhausting. Last night was the first time in years I let the mask slip, and you didn't judge. You just stayed." "I couldn't leave," I said simply. "Not after seeing you like that. Do you know I've never seen anyone break so beautifully? Not in a poetic way, just real, honest. It made me realize how much we all hide." Her breath caught and she looked away for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the carpet. When she turned back, her eyes were brighter, a mix of vulnerability and something warmer. "So who are you really, Ethan? Beyond the clerk who fixes my coffee runs and stays late without complaint?" I paused, surprised by the question. No one had asked me that in a long time, not like this, not with genuine curiosity. "I'm just a guy from a small family. Grew up here in Riverton, parents divorced when I was a kid. I wanted to be an engineer once, but life got in the way. Bills, bad luck. Now, I'm the one who shows up even when it hurts. The one who almost didn't make it through a dark night once, but did because someone reached out. And last night, when I saw you on that edge, I realized maybe I'm here to do the same for someone else." The air thickened between us, charged with unspoken truths. She reached out tentatively, her hand covering mine on the floor, cool fingers against my warmer skin. Neither of us pulled away. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me. The real me." We didn't move for a while, just sitting there, hands linked in the quiet. The office clock ticked softly, marking time we weren't rushing. For the first time, the roles melted away, no boss, no employee. Just two people, stripped bare, finding solace in the shared silence. As the night deepened, I felt a shift. Not dramatic, but profound. We weren't fixing each other, but in that empty room, we were finally free to be broken together. By midnight, as we gathered our things, the distance from the day felt miles away. "See you tomorrow?" I asked at the door. She smiled faintly. "Yeah, and Ethan? No masks." "No masks," I agreed. We walked out into the cool night, side by side, the first steps towards something neither of us had planned. 6 months later, Riverton looked much the same as it always had. The bus still ran late on rainy mornings, the corner bakery shut down early on Wednesdays, and the only coffee shop in town stubbornly refused credit cards, insisting on cash like it was still the 90s. The whispers at work had died down eventually. People moved on to fresher gossip, like the mayor's new budget cuts or Mark from accounting's messy divorce. Sophia and I navigated the office with a careful neutrality, nods in the hallway, brief emails about reports, nothing that raised eyebrows. But outside those walls, things had shifted quietly, profoundly. I still worked my shifts, filing the same endless paperwork, but now my evenings didn't end in my cramped apartment. Instead, I found myself heading to her place, a modest two-bedroom condo on the quieter side of town, tucked behind a row of evergreens. It wasn't flashy. Beige walls, a secondhand couch that sagged in the middle, a kitchen table scarred from years of use. But it felt like home in a way my place never had. The first time I'd stayed over was accidental. A late-night talk after work that stretched into dawn, neither of us wanting to break the spell. Now it was routine. I'd let myself in with the spare key she'd given me, drop my bag by the door, and find her in the living room, glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed files. One evening I pushed open the door without knocking. It was unlocked, as it often was these days. "Door's open," I called out, kicking off my shoes. "I know," she replied from the kitchen, her voice carrying that familiar warmth. "Because you never leave without coming back." She was stirring something on the stove, pasta sauce from the smell of garlic and tomatoes wafting through the air. I leaned against the counter, watching her. 6 months had softened the edges we'd both carried that night on the roof. Her laugh came easier now, lines around her eyes crinkling with genuine amusement rather than stress. She still wore her suits to work, still commanded meetings with that sharp precision, but at home she let her hair down, literally and figuratively. No more masks, like we'd promised. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. "Smells good. Long day?" "The usual," she said, leaning back into me. "Budget meetings that went nowhere. Yours?" "Filed reports until my eyes crossed. But hey, no crises today." I kissed her neck lightly and she smiled, turning off the burner. We ate at the table, simple plates of spaghetti and salad, talking about nothing and everything. The quirky new intern at work, the stray cat that had started hanging around her balcony, plans for a weekend hike if the weather held. We didn't label what we had. No boyfriend or girlfriend, no rushed talks of marriage or rings. It wasn't about titles, it was about presence. Every night, I'd brew her chamomile tea when she worked late, setting it beside her laptop with a quiet, "Don't stay up too long." And every morning, she'd fold my shirts neatly, leaving them on the dresser with a sticky note. "Take your jacket. Looks like rain today." One weekend, we drove out to the nearby lake, a spot we'd discovered on a whim a couple months back. The water was calm, reflecting the autumn leaves in shades of red and gold. We sat on a weathered bench, rusty thermos of coffee between us, watching ducks skim the surface. "You ever think about how we got here?" she asked, her head on my shoulder. "All the time," I said, lacing my fingers with hers. "From that rooftop to this. Feels like a different life." She nodded. "I used to lock my doors twice, check the windows every night, like I was afraid of letting the world in. Now, I leave it open because I know you'll walk through." We didn't need grand gestures. Our life was built on the small ones. Her stocking my favorite cereal without asking, me fixing the leaky faucet she'd mentioned in passing. There were tough days, too. Nights when her past crept back. Doubts whispering that she was too broken, too old for this. I'd hold her then, reminding her of that storm, how we'd both pulled through. And there were my insecurities. The age gap, the office dynamics, the fear that people would judge if they knew. But we talked through them, no judgments, just honesty. A few weeks back, during a team lunch, someone asked me casually, "What's Sophia to you anyway? You two seem close lately." I smiled, keeping it light. "She's someone who doesn't make me prove myself every day." They didn't push, and that was that. The truth stayed ours, private, protected. We didn't post photos or announce anything. Riverton had enough eyes without us feeding the mill. As the sun dipped lower over the lake that day, painting the water in fiery hues, Sophia turned to me. "I stood on that roof once, convinced I'd hit bottom. Thought ending it would erase the emptiness, but you called me back, with a voice that shook but didn't waver. And now, this." I squeezed her hand. We both hit bottom that night. But look at us, climbing out together. Back home that evening, as I brewed her tea and she sorted through mail on the couch, it hit me. This wasn't a house built from bricks or mortgages. It was shelter in the truest sense. No locked doors, no barriers, just a place where we could be real, scars and all. She left the porch light on for me every night, even when I was already there. And in return, I made sure she never felt alone in the dark again. Some homes aren't grand or permanent. They're the ones where the door stays open, waiting for you to walk through. No questions, no keys needed. Just the quiet promise that someone's always there, light on, ready to welcome you back.